I'm Angela Santomero. I am the Chief Creative Officer at 9 Story Media, and I am the creator of Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, co-creator of Blue's Clues and the new Blue's Clues and You, Super Y, Creative Galaxy, Wish and Poof, and the new Charlie's Color Farm City. I grew up in New Jersey. I am the oldest of three. And so I was always that little mother figure. You know, I was a camp counselor. I was a babysitter consistently since I was 12. And then when my little brother was born, I was 14. And so it was kind of, I always say it was like a child development 101 class from then on, right? I was fascinated by how his brain worked. And so I was that kid, right? I read every single thing I could read. Always thinking and dreaming about adventures. I loved TV, and I was completely infatuated by Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood because he spoke to me and I talked back with him. And so when my little brother was growing up and I was so involved in his life, like watching the shows that he was watching really made an impact on me. And one thing that was always so interesting is he watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, right? Huge hit. But he would get up and kick at the TV and interact, and he was one of them. And I just found that so interesting, right? That he would interact with the TV. And so Blue's Clues was kind of born out of like, how could you be active and talk, but also be thinking and solving problems? We found out how much they truly were learning because we did tons of research throughout the process. And then at the very end, we did longitudinal research where we proved that kids were actually learning from the show. And so all of those things were really, it's just a proud moment for me.
Hey, thanks. Check this out.
Kids are so smart, right? They're so interesting. And so much of my work is about pausing, like waiting for them to tell us what they think, and then trying to translate that to media so that they feel heard. So I think that I'm always influenced by kids and my interactions with kids.
Do you hear that? What do you think could be making that strange sound?
There was a lot of press about how slow the pacing was for the show. And to be honest, we actually had to sell the show by showing kids on one side of video and the show on the other. So you could see kids truly interacting and talking to Steve. And so I would talk about the basic idea of that came from the research behind the way kids think and also the way it's implemented in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So I talk about Fred. So he called and we became friends. And I was actually seated at his table at an event that he was being honored. And I just like gushed and gushed and gushed and gushed. And he invited me to set, and I got to watch him do shoot the show, and I got to speak to his staff and, really kind of over the years, really talk about child development and what we were trying to do with our shows. And so, after he died, his team said he didn't like very much of what was on television, but he liked Blue's Clues. And so what would I do to promote his legacy? Is there anything that I would do? And I probably cried for the first week, like the idea that I got to do that. And then took it, of course, so seriously that like as I was writing and playing, right, I was 4 playing in this world again, right? I wouldn't give the script to anybody. And they finally said, Fred's not going to read it. Like, you can give it to me. There's millions of us that are really fans. And so you just always, when you're rebooting something or doing something in this way, want to do right by that legacy. And so there was a lot of research, a lot of thought, a lot of love that went into the show. So yes, I gush a little too much about it, but it's definitely been a love project. I didn't want to try to find another Fred Rogers because he's born, right? He was born. He's not somebody you can go out and hire. But Fred had a child development. He wrote it. He did the music. It was who he was. And so I didn't want to do that. And so the idea to go to his puppet world and think about how visual we could create that world in animation, and thinking about, I loved the idea that all of those characters grew up and all had preschoolers of their own, because I always found that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was one of the only shows that had a puppet that grew up. Prince Tuesday was a baby puppet and then got older and older throughout the years. And I found that so amazing. And so it kind of, the ideas just clicked. And then the Fred Rogers production company is fantastic, and their level of socio-emotional skills and their breadth of letting me play and their expertise. And so it all kind of between my team and, their team, like it just really all comes together. We did all of the animation within our company, 9 Story, from the beginning, bonding with directors and animators and, everybody to bring that show to life. Again, like it takes a village. If you ever, right, when we look at everyone's always amazed when they look at credits of a show about how many people it takes to bring something to life. I can channel my inner child, I think, in the sense that it's my favorite part of my day when I can jump into a story and read it and play with those characters when they're so fully developed that you can literally play with them is my favorite moment, of writing. Whenever we're creating something new, I ask or have everyone is always empowered to ask, like, why this show? Why now? Why does the world need this show? And so one of the things that I love about the power of media is how influential it is and how much we can expose kids to view and do and inspire and to give them the vocabulary that they need and give them a window into the world. And so I think the idea of being able to take curriculum and a point of view and a vision and to put it into a show that looks as simple as a Daniel Tiger, as a Blue's Clues, as opposed to putting education and lopping it on the top or, doing something that's just kind of fluffy. But my favorite moment is when we can kind of embed the whole thing within the DNA of the series. Super Why was my master's thesis at Teachers College, Columbia University. I quoted Happy Days in that master's thesis because I talked about how when Fonzie took out a library cards went up like 500%. It's mind blowing when you have a strong series and really strong characters and how you can empower kids. And so the idea of bridging reading and media together, right? Because obviously if you're watching media, you're not reading. And, now that content is everywhere, it's even more important for us to think about the merits of visual learning and what that looks like when you're reading in terms of the adventures in your own imagination. And so that was what the show was all about. It is a show that talks about what the National Reading Panel deems critical for reading success. And each one of the characters are superheroes that have the power to read. And in a way, they have different reading powers, alphabet power, word power. And so all bridging all the way going to the power to read. And it's interactive in the way that Blue's Clues is. So you're propelling the story forward by practicing these key skills. So it is more in your face in terms of education, but it's still a game in the way that you're playing and trying to find out why the big bad wolf is really big and bad.
Which letters did you find?
I think that you should be in touch with the child inside yourself for everything that you do. I think it's a life lesson to be curious and interested in asking questions and always learning. I think that it's important in creative work, but I think it's important in life.